Okay, Mac 248, Production Procedures, the Tuesday class. What did we learn today? Well, we learned the importance of thinking for yourself. The example and the goal was the 7 questions around those pages, around page 150, where Jonah is asking questions in the Socratic method of the various people in the plant. He doesn't tell them what they have to do, he asks them questions so that they will realize slowly over time. A lot of them don't even realize right at the time what the implications of the answers to his questions were. And so the answers to the question aren't even so important so much as the individual people thinking for themselves. They call this critical thinking, whatever. I call critical thinking being able to think for yourself. Solve your own problems. Don't inherit solutions and try and implement them. You'll see it just goes back to the old way it was in no time. You do this to people and you get their buy-in, you get lasting change. We went over those questions, the 7 questions in detail, and they are going to be on the test. The next thing was, later on we're going to see more of this, but small improvements add up in exactly the same way that negative statistical fluctuations add up to be long spaces in the Boy Scout hike line of inventory, to in the Barrington plant, piles of inventory in front of the bottlenecks. The statistical fluctuations add up to these negative things, but when you start trying to improve your process, or you embark on a process of continuous improvement, and you have the idea of making small little changes, like Mr. Lowe's story today about the Kaizen methods in a manufacturing plant that he was in, or Mr. Austin's point about the routings in GE Aerospace, the hard-covered pieces of paper that follow the job that determine whether the part is going to keep going on and using up space or not in the productive capacity. Those were excellent points, and they show why companies understand this now. Small incremental changes add up to big improvements. In the goal, in the end, they add up to not just save jobs, but they don't even have to buy more capacity. They got enough performance out of the capacity that they had to not only meet their orders, but beat their competition to market in order that orders could be filled faster. Then the last part of class was interviewing these concepts. So I want you to understand the difference between a project and a process, to be able to compare and contrast strategy and tactics, the high-level planning versus the lower-level planning, and the project having a life cycle, but a process kind of just going on and on. It can be improved, but this exists in hard space and time, and this just kind of goes on and on. Your life is a project. It has a beginning, middle, and an end. A process, though, just goes on forever. Life goes on even after your project is complete. So, understand and be able to tell me what the forest for the trees saying means in the context of what's going on in the Barrington plant. Remember the 5 project life cycles, what they are and what goes on in them in a very general sense. I'm not going to make you be granular here. Remember the CIM flow chart that's on the Blackboard page and the other documents that go along with the different project management life cycles. They follow these in the goal. They just don't know that they're doing them. But all of those project management life cycles are present in the goal, and they end up on getting them into a process of continuous improvement. This equation states that the bottleneck is equal to or less than the demand placed upon it. This ends up to mean that the bottleneck controls the throughput of the plant and the ability to meet the demand, and it controls the rate at which the system generates money through sales. Is if you can't get your products out the door and into your customer's hand, you don't get paid. In the past, the Barrington plant, many companies had an overemphasis on cost world versus throughput world. Remember what that means. What does inventory stand for on the hike and then in the Barrington plant? I've said that, all right, there were 3 definitions in this thing. They're very important cost accounting definitions. And I made you write down their exact definitions. So I'm going to make you notice, I'm going to have several questions on those all-important measures. Why? Because measurement determines behavior. How you measure me determines how I'm going to act in your factory, your plant, your job. Local efficiencies are harped on in the goal in the beginning, and they are another example of losing the forest for the trees. They're not as important as the throughput considerations. By losing an hour of break time per se on the NCX10, they were losing $2,735 an hour. Really adds up. The last thing I wanted to say is the crux of the book, and the crux that they have to focus on all the way through this to get this process of continuous improvement is that they need to manage the flow through their plant, not the capacity. The flow comes way first. Thank you, and you will have a test this Thursday.